Hello folks, my name is Mark, and this is Why I Hate the World, and this is a quick little unscripted video in response to the recent assassination attempt on Representative Gabrielle Gifford's that happened last Saturday. And I gotta say that if anybody who's been watching my videos or reading my blog or whatever, they know I'm pretty liberal, right? And my first reaction was the same reaction that all the other liberals had. I thought the guy was a teabagger. Alright. And I know that shit isn't funny, but that was my reaction. And it turns out that he's pretty, the guy's name is what's his name? Gerald Launer, right? Turns out that he wasn't a right-wing teabag weirdo. He wasn't that. He wasn't really a left, liberal either. I mean, he was just generally a certifiable nutcase. If you look at his YouTube account, and you can see all the books that he's been reading and stuff like that, he's got influences from all across the spectrum. All right, and he's just he's got Mein Kampf on this side and fucking the Communist Manifesto on that side, and and he's nuts. Okay, that's just all there is to it. It's not anybody's. It's not because of his politics. It's because the guy was a fucking nutbag. And the thing is that, well, first off, I want to say that I think that my gut reaction was actually justified. Okay, and I don't think we can get mad at the liberals for people are getting pissed off at Sarah Palin for putting these little bullet targets on the internet over congressional districts, and one happened to be in Gabrielle Gifford's district. People are getting pissed off at that, and and the thing is, I think to an extent that's justified, and because the truth is that over this past summer, we got a lot of violent rhetoric coming out of the right. We had people throwing bricks through windows. Even Gabrielle Gifford, her office was vandalized. We had Tea Party guys bringing guns to rallies. Threatening Second Amendment. Sharon Engel and her Second Amendment remedies. Fucking comment, and then even Sarah Palin saying we need to retreat and reload. And it's so what do you? So the truth is, it's like, well, what do you fucking think we're gonna think? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think that we're gonna do when somebody flips out and shoots a Democrat? Of course we're gonna think that. Okay, so I think it's justified. All right, and the thing is that not only is it justified, it's actually happened before in the past. Like we had back in July, there was that guy. His name was Brian Williams, and he got in a shootout with some cops up in Oakland, and it turned out that he was a fan of Glenn Beck, and he was going up to shoot these people at this thing called the Tides Foundation in San Francisco, which he saw on Glenn Beck's TV show. You know what I mean? And it's just an example. It's like, well, we have an example where it actually happened. So you can't really get mad at us for assuming this was another one of those. I mean, it turned out it wasn't. All right, this guy, Jared Launer, is just crazy. He's not a right-wing fruitcake, and he's not a left-wing fruitcake. He's just a fruitcake. All right, but so anyway, that's my first point. My second point that I want to make is that all right, while my initial gut reaction was to blame the right, that was my initial gut reaction. In real life, I know that it's not really their fault, for any of these people. I mean, the truth is that, what you hear on the radio and what you see on TV and all that stuff, it can only really push you so far. In the end, the individual is responsible for their actions. Now, there's a guy on the internet on YouTube called Steph Butt, I think his name is, and he's runs Free Domain Radio, which I subscribe to. Which, he's a little too anarchist for me, but the guy's he's a very highly intelligent guy. I like listening to his stuff, and I don't even try to debate him because he's obviously more intelligent than I am, so I don't even bother with that shit, So anyway, but you know, he made a video on this yesterday, and one thing he was talking about was that apparently Gerald Lee Launer, you know, was apparently he lived at home with his parents, and he's like 22, which, you know, is very common nowadays. You know, people don't leave their house till later, you know, especially now since no one can get a fucking job. But anyway, so you know, his thing was that, well, since his parents were supporting this kid, right, and the kid was unemployed and he got kicked out of college and he lived at home and apparently did a lot of drugs, and since his parents were paying his bills, then they share culpability for this massacre. And I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. I mean, you know, I don't see how, like, first off, like, you know, when does it become when exactly does somebody become responsible for their own actions? You know, is it like is there a certain age, like you turn 18 or something like that? Is that why you can drink when you're 21 because you're responsible now, you know? Like, whereas in real life, you know, some people, it doesn't work that way. Some people are responsible their entire lives. You know, when they're kids, they're responsible. You can leave them at home, whatever. They don't get into fucking trouble. Other people are never responsible. You know, they can grow up, they can be 50, 60, 70, and they'll always be fucking around and causing trouble and getting into trouble and all that stuff. So, you know, and I don't see how just because he lived at home, his parents were culpable for that, you know? And truthfully, I don't really think that even if this, you know, I don't blame anything other than him, you know? Like, I don't blame any of those books. If you look at those books, you know, like, I see a lot of the conservatives are out there saying that he's a liberal because he had the Communist Manifesto and he had Mein Kampf, and of course they don't understand that those two are diametrically opposed, but whatever, typical conservatives. You know, I don't even if that were the truth, even if he was like a, you know, I don't know, even if he had fucking Michael Moore's book or some shit on there and he was a rabid, super uber liberal, which, you know, he wasn't, but even if he was, that still wouldn't be a reason why he went and shot all those people, you know, like, you know, I don't see how, alright, it goes back to that argument that, like, you know, violent movies, and violent, you know, games, and stuff like that cause people to go crazy, you know, and desensitize violence, and make children, like, you know, more likely to use violence to solve problems. I don't buy it. Okay, see, my generation is probably we're the first generation to grow up with, like, really violent video games. Okay, the people before us, you know, they had Pong and Death Race 2000 and, you know, Space Invaders, and you know, and it didn't really work. Okay, my generation is a generation that grew up with, you know, the Mortal Kombats. Okay, you know, Contra, fucking guys, you know, shooting each other, and you know, Doom, and fucking Grand Theft Auto, and, you know, Twisted Metal. Remember that one? Your car, you know, you drive around, you run people over, and fucking all that shit. We're the ones that, we grew up with the violent games. We grew up with the violent movies, alright? And for the most part, people in my generation are not crazy, insane serial killers that beat the shit out of each other for no fucking reason and communicate with fucking guns and bombs. You know, no, you know, you don't see people running around in their late 20s, early 30s, ripping each other's heads off with dangling fucking, you know, spinal cords, like, to say hello, hi, how you doing, fatality. No, we're normal people. Okay, it doesn't, you know, it's bullshit. It doesn't fucking it doesn't make people go crazy. All right, violent cartoons don't make people go crazy. Violent TV shows don't. All right, toys with fucking, you know, guns, that was a big deal too back in the day. You know, like when G.I. Joe came out and he had a gun and parents went crazy. It's like, oh, my kid has a gun. And no, it's make-believe, all right? And 99.99999% of all the people out there understand the difference between make-believe and fantasy, all right? Even little tiny children, right? You know, you hear that a lot too. Like, kids can't understand it. Bullshit. Yes, they can, all right? I could when I was a kid, all right? When I was 6 years old, I knew that fucking He-Man was not real, okay? I knew that fucking, you know, yeah, it scared me. I knew aliens were not real, bursting out of the chest and shit. And, even though it scared the shit out of me, even when I admit that when I was 6, all right? And it's, so you play act, you make believe, but it doesn't turn you into a fucking killer, all right? And you know what does? The guy was insane. That's all there is to it, all right? And I don't buy the fact that, that I don't buy that anything was responsible for him flipping out and shooting those people except himself. I mean, if I wanted to, you could probably make the argument, because it turns out that he was a kind of an NWO 2012 end of the world freak. Okay, and I even made a video about that before with these crazy bunker guys stocking up fucking 5 years worth of food and ammo and all that shit and waiting for the end of the world. You could even make the case that that's why he went crazy and shot these, but I don't even really think so, because, there's thousands of people that believe that stupid bullshit, and you don't see them shooting each other, okay? You don't see, guys on, calling into Coast to Coast saying that they're gonna massacre people. I mean, go on the internet, go on fucking Wikipedia. Alright, we're gonna go on Wikipedia right here, and we're gonna look up school shooting, okay? And we're gonna see, what's our very first one. Hey, look at this, 1966 University of Texas massacre. Okay, number of victims 16. Remember that, huh? That was when that guy went up on the water tower with a rifle and started sniping all those people. Now, did they have violent movies in the 60s? Yeah, but you know what they had? The villain would get shot in the movie and there wouldn't be blood. Okay, you didn't have things like Hostel in the 60s, right? You didn't have torture porn. You didn't have Halloween, serial killers. There were no slasher fucking flicks. I mean, you had Psycho. I think that came out. Watch fucking Psycho, all right? It's tame, okay? You didn't have people's eyeballs getting ripped off in the, out in the movies, and guys chopping off some dude's nuts and shoving him in his mouth and then tearing his fucking head open. And, you didn't have that. You didn't have Chucky or Freddy or fucking, Jason Voorhees or, Indiana Jones getting his heart ripped out, or fucking The Human Centipede, which is a badass movie if you haven't seen it. You didn't have that gory, disgusting R-rated shit back then, okay? You had fucking... everything was censored, alright? You had maybe, The Mummy. Ooh, yeah, right. That's some gory shit, okay? You had, Dracula and, the Wolfman, and everything looked fucking cheesy, and it was tame compared to today, okay? You didn't have violent video games back then. There were no fucking video games, alright? You didn't have Grand Theft Auto or fucking Scorpion, finish him, and tearing a dude's head, or fucking Reptile eating a dude's head with his fucking, tongue, and, Grand Theft Auto running over, beating up hookers and robbing them. And no, you didn't have that shit at all, alright? Toys, no video games. The movies were barely violent. TV was not fucking violent back then, alright? You had, westerns and shit, okay? You didn't have fucking stuff like Dexter on TV, alright? Or the X-Files with, monsters, tearing people's heads off and shit like that, or whatever's on TV. I don't even watch TV. You didn't have that. You didn't have fucking, the toys back then were tame, okay? You didn't have, the crazy-ass McFarlane fucking horror toys that you have today, alright? It was, tame-ass shit, okay? But, you know what? That one, if you look at the list, that has the highest almost the highest body count. I guess Virginia Tech beats him, but, it's what caused that? Huh? None of that other shit, and there weren't all these dumbass conspiracy theories back then either, okay? We didn't have people like Alex Jones going on there telling you that, the United States has 90 days left to live, or whatever, or that fucking, an anthrax and, or vaccine is going to cause you to fucking go crazy, and they're going to put computer chips in your head and blah, 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 blah. We didn't have any of that shit, and this guy still went up and shot all those people, so what caused it? I'll tell you what caused it. He was a fucking crazy person, okay? He was insane. He was a fucking nutbag. He was a bag of fucking crazy, wacky nuts, right? And nothing could have prevented that, all right? Nobody could have known. Maybe, all right, maybe if somebody found out that he was crazy and they had him committed, okay? Same thing, you could say the same thing about this guy. My question is, like I was saying before, when are we going to stop blaming all this other stupid bullshit for the actions that crazy people do. You know, when are we going to start blaming the person that does these things, and not what they read, and not what they see, and not video games that they play, and not, you know, politics, you know, because the truth is, folks, okay, you can ban all the TV shows, right? You can ban all the violent movies. You can fucking censor all the comic books. You can get rid of all the violent video games, alright? You can fucking burn all the books in the entire world, okay? And people are still going to do bad things, okay? That's the truth. That's how it's always been. That's how it's always going to be. And why do people flip out and they go crazy like this? I don't know. But it's got nothing to fucking do with anything except the fact that they're fucking crazy. Alright. It's hard. We have to learn that lesson here, okay? Because as an American, and I understand this because I'm one of you, our first reaction, you know, is to react and blame stuff whenever shit like this happens. And that's the wrong thing, folks. Stop fucking blaming people. You know, stop blaming other things for the actions of people, and start holding them accountable. That's all there is to it, you know. It's got to hit that point where it's like it's nobody's fault except his. And that's how it is, folks. Adios.